talk about the CC loop and the piezo wave shockwave therapy. And basically in this group, I think we have 20 minutes, I'm not sure. I'm going to explain the theories behind how they work and so forth, and then tomorrow we're going to actually play with them, okay? So has anybody seen this before, or used it or not?
I haven't used it yet.
Okay.
Dr. Gaynor out.
Oh, Jamie Gaynor, yeah. Yeah, he's a big proponent of this. He uses this in his lectures on non-invasive therapies that are evidence-based, I think is what he calls it, or something like that, one of his talks. This is the Assisi loop, A-S-S-I-S-I, after St. Francis of Assisi, who was the patron saint of animals, and that's who the Pope's named after as well. And this was developed, I always say the biggest challenge with this device is you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, how can that possibly do anything? How can it be anything? But there's literally decades of research and millions of dollars went into developing this therapy. It's really a combination of two different modalities. Diathermy, everyone heard of that? It's not used as much anymore. It's a way of generating heat therapy into the tissue. They don't use it as much as they did years ago. And there was a company called Electrobiology Inc. out of New Jersey, and they invented the first bone stimulator, bone growth stimulator. And I don't know if you've heard of those or not, but it's say you've got a non-union fracture, they'd go in and they'd put a little electrode at each end of the bone and hook you up to a battery pack, and that would help to heal the bone. That would, I think it became a $500 million company. And the main research scientist was Dr. Arthur Pilla from Columbia University Medical School. He just passed away about 2 weeks ago. And so over the last 20, 30 years, they've been working on taking these larger technologies and making them smaller and smaller. And Dr. Pilla did all this in cooperation with some human medical doctors at Columbia University, Dr. Strauch and Herman and Dab. They were primarily plastic surgeons. And so this was originally developed for the human plastic surgery market, because following plastic surgery there is an enormous amount of pain, inflammation, and swelling. Okay, it just goes with the territory. And so what this was designed to be was a device that would help alleviate that could actually be incorporated into bandages and sent home with the patient. So the original units, they were designed that you would turn them on and they would run for a while and then they would turn off, then they'd come back on over a period of a week or so. And what makes this technology unique, you hear about PMF a lot. There's a lot of people out there, talking about different PMF stuff. There's a lot of research on PMF. But when you really start honing down with folks as to how does it work, why does it work, they get a little iffy about trying to explain, some of that. And the one thing that is wonderful about this product is we know exactly what happens. And that is that this microelectric signal, very faint, it's about 1/10,000th of your cell phone, or 1/1000th of your cell phone as far as the energy that it emits. The signal is specific to accelerating the binding of calcium and calmodulin. And when that happens, the end result of that biochemical cascade is you get nitric oxide. And one of the other co-authors of this paper, Dr. Louis Ignarro, won the Nobel Prize in 1998 for discovering that if you increase nitric oxide, you decrease inflammation and accelerate healing. And that was what he got his Nobel Prize in. Since that time, you hear a lot about if you increase nitric oxide, laser increases nitric oxide. So if you want to take this and capsulize it into what does this do? It is a localized, portable nitric oxide generator. That's the bare bones of what it does. And how you would use it in practice is it's completely non-invasive, non-pharmacological. And you know how it is, you've got a lot of animals that can't tolerate NSAIDs. So you've got your underwater treadmill, and you've got your laser, and you've got all these other things that you can't send the underwater treadmill home with the client. You can't send the laser home with the client. But you can send something like this home with the client for them to use at home in place of NSAIDs. And there's actually another study done, I believe it was by Henry Ford Hospital. I'm not 100% certain on that. It was at a Cleveland clinic where they actually compared it to NSAIDs, and it was as or more effective as NSAIDs in reducing pain. So again, it's very well studied. So how you would use this in the practice is most clients or most practitioners buy these and then resell them to the client, send them home with the client. There are 150 15-minute treatments. And how you administer that therapy is relatively simple. The signal that is emitted comes out, and I have a little toy football and I forgot it, I apologize. But if you take a little toy football and stick it in there, not regulation, it's too big, but the little one, it fits right in there. It comes out into a field, it looks like a football, it drops off to an apex on either side, about 2/3 of the diameter, or in this case about 5.5 inches. So if I were going to treat, say, my elbow, I could do it like this, and it's going to go either way, or I could go like this, and it's going to go into my elbow and up the tooth space, essentially. I had to have a tooth extracted about a year ago. I cracked it, couldn't fix it. It was supposed to be a 15-minute procedure. It ended up being a 45-minute procedure. So one would expect that I would have a lot of pain and inflammation following that. Went home that night. It made a lovely earring. Okay, I just turned it on. I set it in front of the television, watched the news. And, the next day I was basically okay. I did it a couple times that night. So there's a little button here. You turn it on. Little lights flash, little green lights. And in 15 minutes it shuts off by itself. The treatment protocol recommended is TID to QID for the first 48 to 72 hours, and then BID after that for, say, a week or so, and then kind of as needed or daily after that. So on 150 treatments, you can see that's actually a pretty good value for the client as well. It's costing them just a couple of bucks, to do one therapy. There's a lot.
It's emitting. What is it emitting? I guess I missed the.
It's an electromagnetic field.
Okay.
Yeah. I have to admit that I have another document that tells you exactly what the Gauss is and all that stuff. If you're so inclined to know that, but I don't know that it really is, that necessary. But it's a PEMF, pulsing electromagnetic field. If you want to know that it's working, I found this out. If you put on headphones like with an iPod and try to put it on your head.
Very attractive.
Yeah, thank you. You can hear it pulsing through the headphones. But when it's actually on, treated in an area, sometimes people will feel a little warmness, but for the most part, you really don't feel anything until afterwards.
How much do these cost?
Your cost, it's a scale, volume scale, goes from $169 for one down to $139 for 10 or more, and then there's a shipping and handling charge. So about roughly $150 if you want to use a round number for what it costs.
What would you sell them for?
I have practices sell them anywhere from $250 to $325. A practice in Tulsa, Oklahoma, gets $325 for one of these, and they buy about 10 a month. So yeah, I mean, in what you're doing here, I mean, truly, we always say, every practice really can use these. I mean, I can't think of any whether it be a rehab practice or just a general practice. You know, sending them home with surgeries. I've already mentioned these animals that are intolerant to NSAIDs. Anytime you want to accelerate healing, decrease inflammation, decrease pain, anytime you want to do that, you can use these. And it's really been kind of a fun thing to work with, because we do have very, you know, a bunch of very respectable people. I used to, you know, I have a triad of 3 big names. Jamie Gaynor, who's one of the top pain management guys in the whole world. He talks about this in his lectures on non-invasive pain management that's evidence-based. He's got to talk. He puts that in there. So there's a pain person. Of course, Dr. Darryl Millis. You know, he used it on his own ankle and said, "Hey, this is amazing." And then a surgeon, we have a number of surgeons, but like, you know, Dr. Tim Crow. So, you know, these are all people that are, you know, I think pretty good, you know, pretty good endorsements as far as, you know, how, you know, to the science behind it and the efficacy and so forth.
Contraindications? Is there anything? Contraindications?
Only if you have like an electro, say like a pain, what am I trying to think of? Like
Pump, morphine.
No.
yeah, like morphine, anything
Yeah,
that's
pacemaker.
yeah,
If you have a pacemaker.
pacemaker, yeah, yeah. So we got to move on. We're going to talk about this
I
again
have one more
tomorrow.
question.
Yes, you can. I'll be
Um,
around until tomorrow after lunch.
do you use it
Two.
specifically on joint pain or like open wound healing?
Oh, wound healing. It's fantastic.
okay.
Fantastic.
That's right. Sorry.
For wound healing. Wound healing, joint healing, wobblers. We've had amazing results neurologically with this, to such an extent that they're even doing a traumatic brain injury study on the human side with this technology. So we can pass that around, and we got to move on because we're running out of time in my calendar. So anyway, shockwave therapy. Anybody know anything at all about this? Heard anything?
My horse had it done.
Your
That's
horse
all I
had
know.
it done,
Horse.
and when your
Yeah.
horse had it done, it was loud.
Yep. And he
Yeah.
kicked it over, and yeah, it was a big scene.
Okay.
Didn't like it.
So
Yeah.
the reason why you haven't heard about shockwave therapy much in small animal, even though there is some stuff out there, is because the main device that was available before this was loud, expensive. You had to sedate the animal, and that limited it for a lot of people. Okay. The therapy probe on those would burn out after about 20,000 shocks, and then you had to buy a new therapy probe at a cost of $1,800. So for many veterinarians, by the time they did the sedation and paid for the probe, they had several $100s tied up in it before they even treated the animal. So this technology has actually been around for a couple of decades. If you've heard of lithotripsy, breaking up kidney stones, it's actually the same technology as the lithotriptor, scaled down. Okay, and how this works is there is this parabolic disc. I'll show it here in a second. Dish, I should say. This is lined with ceramic crystals in a mosaic type pattern that when they're energized, they expand and contract in a couple of nanoseconds. And that creates the shock wave. And it's just a high intensity sound wave. The way I would explain it to a client, little mini sonic booms. That's what you have. And I'll show you this. So it looks like so. Okay. This is all lined with ceramic crystals on the inside. Now, this is like other devices where you really don't want to drop this, okay? Because it will break.
How much are those to replace?
These are a lot more to replace. They're about $8,000, but the initial warranty is 5 million shocks. So if you look at the electrohydraulic shock wave, your cost per shock with that is about 7 to 7.5 cents. Your cost per shock with this is about 0.0012, I think I figured it out to be. So it's virtually nothing. So we have to use ducted gel, and this is nothing more than ultrasound gel. And we put a little ultrasound gel in there, like so. And then we take a pad. I'm going to talk about the pads in a second. And we just put this in here so that we don't have any big air bubbles, and put our locking ring on, and we're all going to feel this in a minute. So I'm going to talk about being woken up.
Yeah.
We'll take care of that in just a second. So I mentioned the pad. The shock wave that's generated goes out to a fixed point all the time. That's the other thing about the piezoelectric shock wave, is it's consistent. It's always, if you were to look at it, measure it, it's always the same every time. Whereas with other shock waves, you see a lot of variation in it, and that's just because of the way it's designed. So that shock wave's coming out to a fixed point on this particular probe, 30 millimeters out. So, and that is to about right there, okay? But we don't really necessarily want to go 30 millimeters. Like if I'm going to do my knuckle, I don't want to, if I go 30 millimeters, I'm going to go all the way to the other side.
So where are you measuring from?
From the surface of the skin into the wherever you want to treat.
Well, 30 millimeters should be 3 centimeters, so what you're showing.
Yes, not from this.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking. I just
Well,
said, that's
yeah.
a lot smaller than 30 millimeters in my book.
Yeah.
I'm just,
So what we do is this is just a standoff pad.
okay, yeah.
Okay.
So it's from the curve.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we use these standoff pads to determine how deep we want that shock wave to go.
So the shock wave's pretty consistent.
Consistent.
The standoff pad will allow you to, the shorter your standoff, the deeper you're able to actually penetrate.
Exactly. So with this one, this is very superficial. It's a 5 millimeter. Okay. Whereas this one is the 30 millimeter.
Got it.
See? And for most small animal stuff, 25 is like usually the max that you're ever going to do. In fact, this machine is the human version. Just like this was a human product. These come out of the same plant, they just put a different label on them. This machine comes out of the same, also, all they do is before they ship it out of the warehouse in Atlanta, is they put a little sticker on that says vet. You know, other than that, it's the, so on humans, they never go any deeper than 30 millimeters.
Who's using it in humans?
Mainly PTs and chiropractors. Chiropractors love this to, like, they'll do it over a spine before they adjust because it just loosens everything up in there. So what the principle behind this